got it. Preparing to live stream the webinar. All right, cool. Okay, yeah, looks like we're live now. Hi, I'm Paul Sugarman of the Instant Shakespeare Project, and today we have a very, the Instant Shakespeare Company, and today we have a very exciting presentation from the Shaw Project, the Philanderer. And so I'm going to turn it over to David Cedar, and you can introduce it. Over to you, David.
Thank you. The Philanderer is one of Shaw's very early plays, and shows his influence from Ibsen to a certain extent. Let's introduce ourselves. I am David Cedar. I will be reading the role of Joseph Cuthbertson. Amelia.
Hi, I'm Amelia Bell, and I will be reading Sylvia Craven.
And Drew.
Hi, I'm Drew Bolander, and I'll be reading Leonard Charteris.
Angus.
Angus Hepburn reading Colonel Daniel Craven.
And Hannah.
I'm Hannah Housley, and I'm reading for Julia Craven.
Jordan.
My name's Jordan Tierney, and I'll be reading Dr. Percy Paramore.
Did I get everybody? Yes.
Me.
Christina.
I'm Christina.
Grace. Christina.
Christina Osterling reading Grace Tranfield and Pageboy.
Great. So let us begin. Act 1. Lady and gentlemen are making love to one another in the drawing room of a flat in Ashley Gardens in the Victoria district of London. It is past 10 at night. The walls are hung with theatrical engravings and photographs. Kemble as Hamlet, Mrs. Siddons as Queen Catherine pleading in court, Sir Henry Irving as Richard III, etc., etc., but not Eleonora Duse nor anyone connected with Ibsen. The room is not rectangular, one corner being cut off diagonally by the doorway, and the opposite one rounded by a turret window filled up with a stand of flowers surrounding a statuette of Shakespeare. The fireplace is on the doorway side with an armchair near it. Small round table further from the door on the same side with a chair beside it has a yellow-backed French novel lying open on it. The piano, a grand, is on the Shakespeare side, open with the keyboard at right angles to the wall. The piece of music on the desk is When Other Lips. Incandescent lights, well shaded, are on the piano and mantelpiece. Near the piano is a sofa on which the lady and gentleman are seated affectionately side by side in one another's arms.
My dearest love.
My darling, are you happy?
In heaven.
Oh, my own.
My heart's love. That must positively be my last kiss, Grace, or I shall become downright silly. Let us talk. Grace, is this your first love affair?
Have you forgotten that I am a widow? Do you think I married Tranfield for money?
How do I know? Besides, you might have married him not because you loved him, but because you didn't love anybody else. When one is young, one marries out of mere curiosity, just to see what it's like.
Well, since you ask me, I was never in love with Tranfield, though I only found that out when I fell in love with you. But I used to like him for being in love with me. It brought out all the good qualities in him so much that I have wanted to be in love with someone ever since. I hope, now that I am in love with you, you will like me for it, just as I liked Tranfield.
My dear, it is because I like you that I want to marry you. I could love anybody, any pretty woman, that is.
Do you really mean that, Leonard?
Of course. Why not?
Never mind why. Now tell me, is this your first love affair?
No, bless my soul, no. Nor my second, nor my third.
But I mean your first serious one.
Yes. It is the first in which I have been serious.
I see. The other parties were always serious?
No, not always, heaven forbid.
How often?
Well, once.
Julia Craven.
Who told you that? You'd much better not have asked.
I'm sorry, dear.
Do I feel harder to the touch than I did 5 minutes ago?
Nonsense.
I feel as if my body had turned to the toughest hickory. That is what comes of reminding me of Julia Craven. I've sat alone with her just as I am sitting with you now, and just exactly. She has put her hands in mine and laid her cheek against mine and listened to me saying all sorts of silly things. Ah, if you don't want to hear any more of the story, so much the better.
When did you break it off?
Break it off?
Yes, break it off.
Well, let me see. When did I fall in love with you?
Did you break it off then?
It was clear then, of course, that it must be broken off.
And did you break it off?
Oh, yes. I broke it off.
But did she break it off?
As a favor to me, dearest, change the subject. Come away from the piano, and I want you to sit here with me.
No, I have also grown hard to the touch, much harder than hickory for the present. Did she break it off?
My dear, be reasonable. It was fully explained to her that it was to be broken off.
Did she accept the explanation?
Oh, she did what women like Julia always do. When I explained personally, she said it was not my better self that was speaking, and that she knew I still really loved her. When I wrote it to her with brutal explicitness, she read the letter carefully and then sent it back to me with a note to say that she had not had the courage to open it, and that I ought to be ashamed at having written it. You see, dearie, she won't look the situation in the face.
I am afraid, from the light way in which you speak of it, you did not sound the right chord.
My dear, when you are doing what a woman calls breaking her heart, you may sound the very prettiest chords you can find on the piano, but to her ears it's just like this. No, my dear, I have been kind. I have been frank. I have been everything that a good-natured man could be. She only takes it as the making up of a lover's quarrel. Frankness and kindness, one is as the other, especially frankness. I have tried both.
What are you going to try now?
Action, my dear. Marriage. In that she must believe. She won't be convinced by anything short of it because, you see, I have had some tremendous philanderings before and have gone back to her after then.
And so that is why you want to marry me?
I cannot deny it, my love, yes. It is your mission to rescue me from Julia.
Then, if you please, I decline to be made use of for any such purpose. I will not steal you from another woman.
Steal me? Grace, I have a question to put to you as an advanced woman. Mind, as an advanced woman. Does Julia belong to me? Am I her owner, her master?
Certainly not. No woman is the property of a man. A woman belongs to herself and to nobody else.
Quite right. Ibsen forever. Now, that's exactly my opinion. Now, tell me, do I belong to Julia, or have I a right to belong to myself?
Of course you have, but...
Yeah, then how can you steal me from Julia if I don't belong to her? Eh, little philosopher? No, my dear, if Ibsen sauce is good for the goose, it's good for the gander as well. Besides, it was nothing but a philander with Julia, nothing else in the world, I assure you.
So much the worse. I hate your philanderings. They make me ashamed of you and of myself.
Grace, you utterly misunderstand the origin of my philanderings. Listen to me. Am I a particularly handsome man?
No.
You admit it. Am I a well-dressed man?
Not particularly.
Of course not. Have I a romantic, mysterious charm about me? Do I look as if a secret sorrow preyed on me? Am I gallant to women?
Not in the least.
Certainly not. No one can accuse me of it. Then whose fault is it that half the women I speak to fall in love with me? Not mine. I hate it. It bores me to distraction. At first it flattered me, delighted me. That was how Julia got to me, because she was the first woman who had the pluck to make me a declaration. But I soon had enough of it, and at no time have I taken the initiative and persecuted women with my advances as women have persecuted me. Never. Except in your case.
Oh, no need to make any exception. I had a good deal of trouble to induce you to come and see us. You were very coy.
With you, dearest, the coyness was sheer coquetry. I loved you from the first and flared only that you might pursue. Oh, but come, let us talk about something really interesting. Do you love me better than anyone else in the world?
I don't think you like to be loved too much.
Well, it depends on the person, who the person is. You cannot love me too much. You cannot love me half enough. I reproach you every day for your coldness, your... Who the deuce is calling at this hour?
I can't imagine.
Is Mr. Charteris here?
Julia, the devil!
What can she want?
Never mind, I will announce myself. Oh, this is charming. I've interrupted a pretty tete-a-tete. Oh, you villain!
Oh, Julia, this is too bad.
Is it indeed too bad? What are you doing here with that woman, you scoundrel? Now listen to me, Leonard. You've driven me to desperation. I don't care what I do, or who hears me. I shall not bear it. She shall not have my place with you, not while I can help it. No, I don't care. I will expose her true character before everybody. You belong to me. You have no right to be here, and she knows it.
I think you had better let me take you home, Julia.
I will not. I am not going home. I'm going to stay here. Here, until I've made you give her up.
My dear, you must be reasonable. You really cannot stay in Mrs. Tranfield's house. If she objects, she can ring the bell and have us both put out.
Oh, let her do it then. Let her ring the bell if she dares. Let her see how this pure, virtuous creature will face the scandal of what I will declare about her. Let her see how you will face it. I've nothing to lose. Everybody knows how you've treated me. You've boasted of your conquests, your poor, pitiful, vain creature. I am the common talk of your acquaintances and hers. Oh, as I've calculated my advantage, I am a most unhappy and injured woman, but I am not the fool you take me to be. I am going to stay, see? Now, Mrs. Tranfield, there is the bell. Why don't you ring? I thought so.
Mrs. Tranfield, I think you had better go into another room.
She shall not. She shall stay here. She shall know what you are and how you've been in love with me. How it's not 2 days since you kissed me and told me that the future would be as happy as the past. You did. Deny it if you dare.
Go.
Get her away as soon as you can, Leonard.
Look, there's no need to be violent. That's worthy of you to use brute force to humiliate me before her.
Oh, this is going to be a cheerful evening. Now, patience, patience, patience.
Leonard, have you no feeling for me?
Only an intense desire to get you safely out of this.
I am not going to stir.
Well.
I'm going to speak to that woman.
No, hang it, Julia. Don't let's have another wrestling match. I have the strength, but not the wind. You are too young for me. Sit down, or else let me take you home. Suppose her father comes in.
I don't care. It rests with you. I'm ready to go. She will give you up. Until then, I stay. Those are my terms. You owe me that.
I owe you exactly nothing.
Nothing? You can look me in the face and say that. Leonard.
Let me remind you, Julia, that when first we became acquainted, the position you took up was that of a woman of advanced views.
That should have made you respect me the more.
So it did, my dear, but that is not the point. As a woman of advanced views, you were determined to be free. You regarded marriage as a degrading bargain by which a woman sold herself to a man for the social status of a wife and the right to be supported and pensioned in old age out of his income. That's the advanced view. Our view. Besides, if you had married me, I might have turned out a drunkard, a criminal, an imbecile, a horror to you. And you couldn't have released yourself. Too big a risk, you see. And that's the rational view. Our view. Accordingly, you reserve the right to leave me at any time if you found our companionship incompatible with what was the expression you used? With your full development as a human being. I think that is how you put the Ibsenist view, our view. So I had to be content with a charming Philander, which taught me a great deal and brought me some hours of exquisite happiness.
Leonard, you confess then that you owe me something.
No, what I received, I paid. Did you learn nothing from me? Was there no delight for you in our friendship?
No, you made me pay dearly for every moment of happiness. You revenged yourself on me for the humiliation of being the slave of your passion for me. I was never sure of you for a moment. I trembled whenever a letter came from you, lest it should contain some stab for me. I dreaded your visits almost as much as I longed for them. I was your plaything, not your companion. There was such suffering in my happiness that I hardly knew joy from pain. Better for me if I've never met you.
You ungenerous wretch! Is this your gratitude for the way I have just been flattering you? What have I not endured from you? Endured with angelic patience. Did I not find out, before our friendship was a fortnight old, that all your advanced views were merely a fashion picked up and followed like any other fashion without understanding or meaning a word of them? Did you not, in spite of your care for your own liberty, set up claims on me, compared to which the claims of a most jealous wife would have been trifles? Have I a single woman friend whom you have not abused as old, ugly, vicious?
I'm afraid they are.
Well, then, I'll come to grievances that even you can understand. I accuse you of habitual and intolerable jealousy and ill temper, of insulting me on imaginary provocation, of positively beating me, of stealing letters of mine.
Yes, nice letters.
Of breaking your solemn promises not to do it again. Of spending hours, days, piecing together the contents of my waste paper basket in your search for more letters. And then, representing yourself as an ill-used saint and martyr, wantonly betrayed and deserted by a selfish monster of a man.
I was justified in reading your letters. Our perfect confidence in one another gave me the right to do it.
Thank you. Then I hasten to break off a confidence which gives such rights.
You have no right to break it off.
I have. You refused to marry me.
You did not. You never asked me. If we were married, you would never dare treat me as you are doing now.
It was understood between us as people of advanced views that we were not to marry because, as the law stands, I might have become a drunkard.
A criminal, an imbecile, or a horror. You said that before.
No, I beg your pardon, dear. I know I have a habit of repeating myself. The point is, you reserved your freedom to give me up when you please.
Well, what of that? I do not please to give you up, and I will not. You've not become a drunkard or a criminal.
You do not see the point yet, Julia. You seem to have forgot that in reserving your freedom to leave me in case I should turn out badly, you also reserved my freedom to leave you in case you should turn out badly.
Very ingenious. And pray, have I become a drunkard or a criminal or an imbecile?
You have become what is infinitely worse than all three together. A jealous termagant.
Oh, yes. Abuse me. Call me names.
I now assert the right I reserved, the right of breaking with you when I please. Advanced views, Julia, involve advanced duties. You cannot be an advanced woman when you want to bring a man to your feet and a conventional woman when you want to hold him there against his will. Advanced people form charming friendships. Conventional people marry. Marriage suits a good deal of people. Its first duty is fidelity. Friendship suits some people, and its first duty is unhesitating, uncomplaining acceptance of a notice of a change of feeling from either side. You chose friendship instead of marriage. Now, do your duty and accept your notice.
Never. We are engaged in the eye of.
Yes, Julia? Can't you get it out in the eye of something that advanced women don't believe in, eh?
Oh, Leonard, don't be cruel. I'm too miserable to argue. To think I only know that I love you. And you reproach me with not wanting to marry you. I would have married you at any time after I came to love you if you'd asked me. I'll marry you now if you will.
I won't, my dear. That's flat. We are intellectually incompatible.
But why? We could be so happy. Look, you love me. I know you love me. I feel it. You say, my dear, to me. You said it several times this evening, and I know I've been wicked, odious, bad. I say nothing in defense of myself, but don't be hard on me. I was distracted by the thought of losing you. Yes, I can't face life without you, Leonard. I was happy when I met you. I never loved anyone, and if you'd only let me alone, I could have gone on contentedly by myself, but I can't now. I must have you with me. Don't cast me off without a thought of all I have at stake. I could be a friend to you if you would only let me. If you'd only tell me your plans, give me a share in your work. Treat me as nothing more than the amusement of something of an idle, or something more than the amusement of an idle hour. Leonard, you've never given me a chance. Indeed, you haven't. I'll take pains. I'll read. I'll try to think. I'll conquer my jealousy. No, I'm mad. You'll kill me if you desert me.
My dear love, don't cry. Don't go on this way. You know I can't help it.
You can. One word from you will make us happy forever.
Come, my dear, we really must go. We can't stay here until Cuthbertson comes. Here is your mantle. Put it on and be good. You have given me a terrible evening. You must have some consideration for me.
Then I am to be cast off?
You are to put on your bonnet, dearest.
Well, I suppose I must do what I'm told. Oh, look at that! Look at what this creature reads. Filthy, vile French stuff that no decent woman would touch. And you've been reading it with her.
You recommended that book to me yourself. Don't damage property, Julia. Making scenes is an affair of sentiment. Damaging property is serious. Now, do, pray, come along.
You can go. There's nothing to prevent you. I will not stir.
Oh, come, I'm not going to begin this all over again. There are limits even to my forbearance. Come on.
I will not, I tell you.
Then good night.
You shall not leave me here alone.
Then come with me.
No, not till you've sworn to give up that woman.
My dear, I will swear anything if you will only come away and put an end to all this.
You will swear?
Solemnly. Propose the oath. I have been on the point of swearing for the last half hour.
You're only making fun of me. I want no oath. I want your promise, your sacred word of honor.
Certainly. Anything you demand, on condition that you come away immediately. On my sacred word of honor, as a gentleman, as an Englishman, as anything you like. I will never see her again, never speak to her, never think of her. Now come.
But are you in earnest? Will you keep your word?
Now you are getting unreasonable. Do come along without any more nonsense. At any rate, I am going. I'm not strong enough to carry you home, but I am strong enough to make my way through that door in spite of you. You will then have a new grievance against me for brutal violence.
If you do, I swear I'll throw myself from that window, Leonard, as you pass out.
That window is at the back of the building. I shall pass out in front, so you will not hurt me. Good night.
Leonard, have you no pity?
Not in the least. When you condescend to these antics, you force me to despise you. How can a woman who behaves like a spoiled child and talks like a sentimental novel have the audacity to dream of being a companion for a man of any sort of sense or character? Come, don't cry. My dear Julia, you don't look half so beautiful as when you are happy, and it takes all the starch out of my shirt front. Come along.
Well, I'll come, dear, if you wish it. Give me one kiss.
Oh, this is too much. No, I'm dashed if I will. Here. Let me go, Julia.
Oh,
Will
dear,
you come?
if you wish, darling.
Well, here. Now remember your promise. Come along.
Well, that was not a nice kiss, dearest. I want one of our old real kisses.
No, go to the deuce! Julia, we are done. Cuthbertson's coming upstairs with your father. Do you hear? The two fathers.
Well, impossible. They don't know one another.
I tell you, they're coming up together like brothers. What on earth are we to do?
You are quick. The lift. We can go down in that.
No, the man's gone home and the lift's locked.
Let's go up the next floor.
There's no next floor, at the top of the house. No, you must invent some thumping lie. I can't come up with one. You can, Julia. Exercise your genius. I'll back you up.
But
Shh. Here they are. Sit down and look at home.
okay, come and sing.
Oh, is there not one maiden breast whose homely face and bad complexion?
Oh, don't stop, Miss Craven. Go on, Charteris.
No, thank you. Miss Craven has just been taking me through an old song, and I've had enough of it.
Why, you've brought Daddy! What a surprise! I'm so glad you've come, Dad.
Craven, let me introduce you to Mr. Leonard Charteris, the famous Ibsenist philosopher.
Oh, well, we know each other already. Charteris is quite at home at our house, Joe.
Oh, I beg both your pardons. He's quite at home here, too. By the by, where's Grace?
I beg your pardon, Mr. Charteris. I interrupted you.
Not at all, Miss Craven.
You were going to tell us about Grace, Charteris.
I was only going to say that I didn't know that you and Craven were so well acquainted.
Why, I didn't know it until tonight. It's a most extraordinary thing. We met by chance at the theatre, and he turns out to be my oldest friend.
Yes, Craven. And do you see how this proves what I was saying to you about the break-up of family life? Here are all our young people bosom friends, inseparables, and yet they never said a word of it to us. We two, who knew each other before they were born, might never have met again if you hadn't popped into the stall next mine tonight by pure chance. Come, sit down. There's your place by my fireside whenever you choose to fill it. Just imagine you being Dan Craven.
Just imagine you being Joe Cuthbertson, though. That's a far more extraordinary coincidence. Because I got it into my head that your name was Tranfield.
Oh, that's my daughter's name. She's a widow, you know. How uncommonly well you look, Dan. The years haven't hurt you much.
Yes, I look well. I even feel well, but my days are numbered.
Oh, don't say that, my dear fellow. I hope not.
Daddy!
Oh, there, my dear. I was wrong to talk of it. It's a sad subject, but it's better that Cuthbertson should know. Well, we used to be very close friends, and are still so, I hope.
The fact is, Cuthbertson, Craven's a devout believer in the department of witchcraft called medical science. He's celebrated in all the schools as an example of the newest sort of liver complaint. The doctors say he can't last another year, and he has fully made up his mind not to survive next Easter, just to oblige them.
It's very kind of you to try to keep up my spirits by making light of it, Charteris. But I shall be ready when my time comes. I am a soldier. Oh, don't cry, Julia.
I hope you may long be spared, Dan.
Oh, to oblige me, Joe, change the subject.
Try to persuade him to join our club, Cuthbertson.
Oh, it's no use. Sylvie and I always urge him to join, but he won't.
My child, I have my own club.
Yes, the Junior Army and Navy. Do you call that a club? Why, they daren't let a woman cross the doorstep.
The clubs are a matter of taste, Charteris. You like a cock and hen club. I don't. It's bad enough to have Julia and her sister, a girl under 20, spending half their time at such a place. Besides, now, really, such a name for a club. The Ibsen Club. I should be laughed out of London. The Ibsen Club. Oh, come, Cuthbertson, back me up. I'm sure you'll agree with me.
Cuthbertson's a member.
No. Why? He's been talking to me all the evening about the way in which everything is going to the dogs through advanced ideas in the younger generation.
Of course, he's been studying it in the club. He's always there.
Not always. Don't exaggerate, Charteris. You know very well that though I joined the club on Grace's account, thinking that her father's presence there would be a protection and a sort of sanction, as it were, I never approved of it.
Well, you know, this is unexpected. Now, it's really very unexpected. I should never have thought of hearing it from hearing you talk, Joe. Why, you said the whole modern movement was abhorrent to you because your life had been passed in witnessing scenes of suffering nobly endured and sacrifice willingly rendered by womanly women and manly men. Deuce knows what else. Is it at the Ibsen Club that you see all this manliness and womanliness?
Certainly not. The rules of the club forbid anything of that sort. Every candidate for membership must be nominated by a man and a woman, both who guarantee that the candidate, if female, is not womanly, and if male, is not manly.
Won't do, Charteris. Can't take me in with so thin a story as that.
It's true. It's monstrous, but it's true.
Do you mean to say that somebody had the audacity to guarantee that my Julia is not a womanly woman?
It sounds incredible, but a man was found ready to take that inconceivable lie on his conscience.
Oh, there's nothing worse than that on his conscience. He may sleep pretty well. In what way am I more womanly than any of the rest of them? I should like to know. They're always saying things like that behind my back. I hear of them from Sylvia. Only the other day, a member of the committee said I ought never to have been elected, that you had smuggled me in. I should like to see her say it to my face, that's all.
Yeah, but my precious, I most sincerely hope she was right. She paid you the highest compliment. Why, the place must be a den of infamy.
So it is, Craven, so it is.
Exactly. That's what keeps it so select. Nobody but people whose reputations are above suspicion dare belong to it. If we once got a good name, we should become a mere whitewashing shop for all the shady characters of London. Better join us, Craven. Let me put you up.
What? Join a club where there's some scoundrel who guaranteed my daughter to be an unwomanly woman? Oh, if I weren't an invalid, I'd kick him.
Oh, don't say that. It was I who did it.
You? Now, upon my soul, Charteris, this is very vexing. Oh, how could you bring yourself to do such a thing?
She made me. Why, I had to guarantee Cuthbertson was unmanly, and he's the leading representative of manly sentiment in London.
I didn't do Joe any harm, but it took away my Julia's character.
Daddy!
Not at the Ibsen Club, quite the contrary. After all, what can we do? You know what breaks up most clubs for men and women. There's a quarrel, a scandal, cherchez la femme, always a woman at the bottom of it. Well, we knew this when we founded the club, and we noticed that the woman at the bottom of it was always a womanly woman. The unwomanly women who work for their living and know how to take care of themselves never give any trouble. So we simply said we wouldn't have any womanly women. And when one gets smuggled in, she has to take care not to behave in a womanly way. We get on all right. Come to lunch with me tomorrow and see the place.
No, he's engaged to me. But you can join us.
What hour?
Oh, anytime after 12. It's at 90 Cork Street at the other end of the Burlington Arcade.
Ah, you're 90, you say, after 12. Oh, by the by, don't order anything special for me. I'm not allowed wine, only Apollinaris. No meat either, only a scrap of fish occasionally. I'm to have a short life, but not a merry one. Oh, well. Now, Julia, it's time for us to be off.
Wait on earth is Grace? I must go and look for her.
Oh, pray don't disturb her, Mr. Cuthbertson. She's so tired.
But just for a moment, to say good night.
We must make a clean breast of it, I see.
Of what?
The truth is, Cuthbertson, Mrs. Tranfield, who is, as you know, the most thoughtful of women, took it into her head that that I particularly wanted to speak to Miss Craven alone. So she said she was tired and wanted to go to bed.
Tut.
Oh, is that it? Then it's all right. She never goes to bed as early as this. I'll fetch her in a moment.
Now you've done it. I'm off.
What are you doing, Julia? You can't go until you said good night to Mrs. Tranfield. It would be horribly rude.
You can stay if you like, Daddy. I can't. I'll wait for you in the hall.
Yeah, but what am I to say to her? Oh. Now, really, Charteris, this is devilish awkward upon my life it is. That was the most indelicate thing of you to say, plump out before us all. That about you and Julia.
I'll explain it all tomorrow. Just at the present, we'd better follow Julia's example and bolt.
Well, will you stay? Well, but don't leave me like this. I shall look like a fool. Oh, now I shall really take it in bad part if you run away, Charteris.
All right, I'll stay.
I'm excessively vexed about Julia's conduct. I am indeed. She can't bear to be crossed on the slightest thing, poor child. Oh, I'll have to apologize for her, Her going away is a downright slap in the face for these people here. Cuthbertson may be offended already, for all I know.
Oh, never mind about him. Mrs. Tranfield bosses this establishment.
Oh, that's it, is it? He's just the sort of fellow that would have no control over his daughter. Oh, by the by, what the dickens did he mean by all that about passing his life amid, what was it, scenes of suffering nobly endured and sacrifice willingly rendered by womanly woman and manly men? Not more of the same sort. I suppose he's something in a hospital.
Hospital? Oh, nonsense. He's a dramatic critic. Didn't you hear me say that he was the leading representative of manly sentiment in London?
Oh, you don't say so. Now, really, who'd have thought it? How jolly it must be to be able to go to the theatre for nothing. Oh, I must ask him to get me a few tickets occasionally. Oh, but isn't it ridiculous for a man to talk like that? I'm hanged if he don't take what he sees on the stage quite seriously.
Of course. That's why he's a good critic. Besides, if you take people seriously off stage, why shouldn't you take them seriously on it, where they're under some sort of decent restraint?
The fact is, Grace has gone to bed. I must apologize to you and Miss...
No, it is I who have to apologize for Julia, Joe.
She said she was quite sure that if we didn't go, you'd persuade Mrs. Tranfield to get up and say goodnight for the sake of politeness. So she went straight off.
Very kind of her indeed. I'm really ashamed.
Oh, no, don't mention it, Joe. Don't mention it. She's waiting for me below. Good night, Charteris.
Good night.
Good night. Say good night and thanks to Miss Craven for me. Tomorrow, any time after 12.
All right.
Take care of the stairs. They're rather steep. Good night.
Yes, all right. Thank you.
What's the matter?
Charteris, what has been going on here? I must insist on knowing. Grace is not going to bed. I have seen her and spoken with her. What is it all about?
Ask your theatrical experience, Cuthbertson. A man, of course.
Don't play the fool with me, Charteris. I'm too old a hand to be amused by it. I ask you seriously, what is the matter?
I tell you seriously, I'm the matter. Julia wants to marry me. I want to marry Grace. I came here tonight to sweetheart Grace, enter Julia. Alarms, excursions, exit Grace. Enter you and Craven, subterfuges and excuses, exeunt Craven and Julia. And here we are. That's the whole story. Sleep over it. Good night.
Well, I'll be curtain. All right, everybody, let's take 5 minutes before the next act.
Thank you.
Thank you, Five.
Thank you, Five.
Hey, well, we take a little break. Unfortunately, just wanted to, I mean, we can't, well, we could pause the recording, but we can't really pause the live stream. But I do want to let you know that the Shaw Project will be doing another presentation before the end of the year on Sunday, December 12th at 7 p.m. It'll be an evening of some holiday Victorian fun, include with 3 one-acts, including one by Charles Dickens, and which should be, I mean, because I know we're all very familiar with Dickens. I mean, his many his many wonderful novels that have been adapted into many musicals, plays, all sorts of things. But he did actually write plays as well, and he did a lot in terms of course, his own performances of readings of his own works. So we've got that looking forward to. Instant Shakespeare Company. Don't have anything this coming Thursday. Just wish everybody has a happy Thanksgiving. And then we will be next Saturday. We're having Romeo and Juliet, and Amelia will be Juliet again from the production that I was almost in, that my wife was directing. It was scheduled to open in March 2020. So. And then the following week, we're, oh my gosh, yeah, I've got a lot to do, because we're then doing Three Sisters on that Thursday, and then Othello on the following Saturday. So anyway, so we've got stuff coming up, and then plans for next year, where, as I say, we hope to be back live in the libraries, but also still continuing on Zoom. So I guess I see David's back. So will back over to you, David.
Okay, are we all back?
Back.
Angus back.
Me too, Drew.
All right. Yes, we need Sylvia, Pageboy, Cuthbertson. Okay.
I'm here. We're here.
Okay, goody. All right, here we go. Act 2. Next day at noon in the library of the Ibsen Club, a long room with glass doors halfway down on both sides, leading respectively to the dining room corridor and the main staircase. At the end in the middle is the fireplace, surmounted by a handsome mantelpiece with a bust of Ibsen and decorative inscriptions of the titles of his plays. There are circular recesses at each side of the fireplace, with divan seats running around them. The space above the divans lined with books. A long settee faces the fire. Along the back of the settee and touching it is a green table littered with journals. Ibsen, looking down the room, has the dining door on his left, and further on, nearly in the middle of the library, a revolving bookcase with an easy chair close to it. On his right, between the door and the recess, is a light library stepladder. Further on, past the door, an easy chair and a smaller one between it and the middle of the room. Placards inscribed "Silence" are conspicuously exhibited here and there. Cuthbertson is seated in the easy chair at the revolving bookstand, reading the Daily Graphic. Dr. Paramore is on the divan in the recess on Ibsen's right, reading the British Medical Journal. And Sylvia Craven is sitting in the middle of the settee before the fire, reading a volume of Ibsen, only the back of her head being visible from the middle of the room. A page boy's voice, monotonously calling for Dr. Paramore, is heard approaching outside on the right.
Dr. Paramore, Dr. Paramore, Dr. Paramore, Dr.
Here, boy. Here, boy. All right, I'll come down to him. Good morning, Mr. Cuthbertson. Mrs. Stranfield, quite well, I hope? Shh. I beg your pardon, Miss Craven. I did not mean to disturb you.
You may talk as much as you like if you only have the common consideration to ask first whether the other people object. What I protest against is your assumption that my presence doesn't matter because I'm only a female member. That's all. Now go on, pray, you don't disturb me in the least.
No gentleman would have dreamed of objecting to our exchanging a few words, madam. As a matter of fact, I was about to say to Dr. Paramore that if he would care to bring his visitor up here, I should not object. The impudence.
Oh, many thanks, but it's only an instrument maker.
And any new medical discoveries, Doctor?
Well, since you ask me, yes, perhaps the most important one. I've discovered something that has hitherto been overlooked, a minute duct in the liver of the guinea pig. Miss Craven will forgive me for mentioning it when I say that it may throw an important light on her father's case. The first thing, of course, is to find out what the duct is there for.
Indeed, how do you do that?
Oh, easily enough, by simply cutting the duct and seeing what will happen to the guinea pig. I shall require a knife specifically made to get at it. The man who is waiting for me downstairs has brought a few handles to try before fitting it and sending it to the laboratory. I am afraid it would not do to bring such weapons up here.
If you attempt such a thing, Dr. Paramore, I will complain to the committee. The majority of the committee are anti-vivisectionists. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
That's the sort of thing we scientific men have to put up with nowadays, Mr. Cuthbertson. Ignorance, superstition, sentimentality, they're all one. A guinea pig's convenience is set above the health and lives of the entire human race.
It's not ignorance nor superstition, Paramore. It's sheer downright Ibsenism. That's what it is. I've been wanting to sit comfortably at that fire the whole morning, but I've never had a chance with that girl there. I couldn't go and plump myself down on a seat beside her. Goodness knows what she'd think I wanted. That's one of the delights of having women in the club. When they come in here, they all want to sit at the fire and adore that bust. I sometimes feel I should like to take the poker and fetch it a wipe across the nose.
I must say I prefer the elder Miss Craven to her sister.
Ah, Julia, I believe you. Splendid fine creature, every inch a woman. No Ibsenism about her.
I quite agree with you there, Mr. Cuthbertson. By the way, do you think Miss Craven is attached to Charteris at all?
What, that fellow? Oh, not he. He hangs about after her, but he's not man enough for her. A woman of that sort likes a strong, manly, deep-throated, broad-chested man.
He's sort of a sporting character, you think?
No. A scientific man, perhaps, like yourself. But you know what I mean. A man.
Of course, but Charteris is a man.
You don't see what I mean.
Mr. Cuthbertson, Mr. Cuthbertson, Mr. Cuthbertson.
Here, boy. Bring the gentleman up here. It's Craven. He's coming to lunch with me and Charteris. You might join us if you've nothing better to do when you finish with the instrument man. If Julia turns up, I'll ask her too.
Oh, I shall be very happy. Thank you. Good morning, Colonel Craven.
Good morning. Glad to see you. I'm looking for Cuthbertson.
There he is.
Delighted to see you. Now, will you come to the smoking room, or will you sit down here and have a chat while we're waiting for Charteris? If you like company, the smoking room's always full of women. Here in the library, we shall have it pretty well all to ourselves until about 3 o'clock.
I don't like to see women smoking. I'll make myself comfortable here.
Neither do I. There's not a room in this club where I can enjoy a pipe quietly without a woman coming in and beginning to roll a cigarette. It's a disgusting habit in women. It's not natural to her sex.
Yeah. Joe, times have changed since we both courted Molly Ebden all those years ago. I took my defeat well, old chap, didn't I?
You did, Dan. The thought of it has often helped me to behave myself. It has, on my honor.
Yes, you always believe in hearth and home, Joe, in a true English wife and a happy, wholesome fireside. How did Molly turn out?
Well, not bad. She might have been worse. You see, I couldn't stand her relations. All the men were roaring cads, and she couldn't get on with my mother.
Oh.
And then she hated being in town. And, of course, I couldn't live in the country on account of my work. But we hit it off as well as most people until we separated.
Separated? Ah, that was the end of the hearth and home, Joe, was it?
It's not my fault, Dan. Someday the world will know how I loved that woman. But she was incapable of valuing a true man's affection. Do you know, she often said she wished she'd married you instead.
Dear me, dear me. Well, perhaps it was better as it was. You heard about my marriage, I suppose.
Oh, yes, we all heard of it.
Oh, well, Joe, I may as well make a clean breast of it. Everybody knew it. I married for money.
But why not, Dan? Why not? We can't get on without it, you know.
I got to be very fond of her, Joe. I had a home until she died. Now everything's changed. Julia's always there. Sylvia's of a different nature, but she's always here, too.
I know. It's the same with Grace. She's always here.
And now they want me to be always here. They're at me every day to join the club. To stop my grumbling, I suppose. That's what I wanted to consult you about. Do you think I ought to join?
Well, if you have no conscientious objection.
I object to the existence of the place on principle. No, but what's the use of that? Here it is in spite of my objection, and I may as well have the benefit of any good that may be in it.
Of course, that's the only reasonable view of the matter. Well, the fact is, it's not so inconvenient as you might think. When you're at home, you have the house more to yourself. And when you want to have your family about you, you can dine with them at the club.
Ah, true.
Besides, if you don't want to dine with them, you needn't.
True. Very true. But don't they carry on here, rather?
Oh, no, they don't exactly carry on. Of course, the usual tone of the club is low, because the women smoke and earn their own living and all that. But still, there's nothing actually to complain of. And it's convenient, certainly.
Ah, do you know, I've a great mind to join just to see what it's like. Would you mind putting me up?
Bless you, my children.
Oh, hello.
I hope I haven't disturbed your chat by coming too soon.
Oh, not at all. Welcome, dear boy.
Oh, that's right. I'm earlier than I intended. The fact is, I have something rather pressing to say to Cuthbertson.
Private?
Not particularly. Only what we were speaking of last night.
Well, Charteris, I think that is private, or ought to be.
Right, I'll just take a look at the time.
No, it's no secret. Everybody at the club guesses it. Has Grace ever mentioned to you that she wants to marry me?
She has mentioned that you want to marry her.
But that it's not what I want, but what Grace wants that will weigh with you.
Excuse me, Charteris. This is private. I'll leave you to yourselves.
Oh, wait a bit, Craven. You're concerned in this. Julia wants to marry me too.
No, really? Upon my life and soul.
It's a fact, I assure you. Didn't it strike you as rather odd, our being up there last night and Miss Tranfield not with us?
Oh, well, yes, it did. Oh, but you explained it. And now, really, Charteris, I must say your explanation was in shocking bad taste before Julia.
Never mind, it was a good, fat, healthy, bouncing lie.
Lie?
So didn't you expect that?
Certainly not. Did you, Joe?
Not at the moment.
Yeah, but what's more, I don't believe you. I'm sorry to have to say such a thing, but you forget that Julia was present and didn't contradict you.
She didn't want to.
Do you mean to say that my daughter deceived me?
Delicacy towards me compelled her to, Craven.
Now look here, Charteris. Have you any proper sense of the fact that you're standing between two fathers?
Quite right, Dan. Quite right. I repeat the question on my own account.
Well, I'm a little dazed still by standing for so long between two daughters, but I think I grasp the situation.
Well, then I'm sorry for your manners, Charteris. That's all. How dare you tell me my daughter wants to marry you? Who are you, pray, that she should have any such ambition?
Just so. She couldn't have made a worse choice. But she won't listen to reason. I've talked to her like a father myself, I assure you, my dear Craven. I have said everything that you could have said. But it's no use. She won't give me up. And if she won't listen to me, what likelihood is there of her listening to you?
Cuthbertson, did you ever hear anything like this?
Never. Never.
Oh, bother, come, don't behave like a couple of conventional old fathers. This is a serious affair. Look at these letters. This is from Grace. By the way, Cuthbertson, I wish you would ask her not to write on letter cards. The blue color makes it so easy for Julia to pick the bits out of the waste paper basket and piece them together. Now listen. My dear Leonard, nothing could make it worth my while to be exposed to such scenes as last night's. You had much better go back to Julia and forget me. Yours sincerely, Grace Tranfield.
I approve of every word of that letter.
Now for Julia. My dearest boy, nothing will make me believe that this odious woman can take my place in your heart. I send some of your letters you wrote me when we first met, and I ask you to read them. They will recall what you felt when you wrote them. You cannot have changed so much as to be indifferent to me. Whoever may have struck your fancy for the moment, your heart is still mine, and so on, the sort of thing. Ever and always your loving Julia. You don't suppose she's serious, do you? That's the sort of thing she writes to me 3 times a day. Grace is in earnest, though, confound it. Blue card as usual. This time I shall not trust a waste paper basket.
May I ask, Mr. Charteris, is this the new humor?
Oh, stuff. Do you suppose it's a joke to be situated as I am? You've got your head stuffed with the new humor and the new woman and this and that and the other, and all mixed up with your own old Adam, that you've lost all your senses.
Do you see that old man, grown grey in the honored service of his country, whose last days you have blighted?
I'm very sorry. Come, Craven, don't take it to heart. I assure you it means nothing. It happens to me constantly.
There is only one excuse for you. You are not fully responsible for your actions. Like all advanced people, you have got neurasthenia.
Great heavens, what's that?
I decline to explain. You know as well as I do. I'm going downstairs now to order lunch. I shall order it for 3, but the 3rd place is for Paramore, whom I have invited, not for you.
Come, Craven, advise me. You've been in this sort of fix yourself, probably.
No woman writes such letters to a man unless he has made advances to her.
How little you know of the world, Colonel. The new woman is not like that.
Well, I can only give you very old-fashioned advice, my boy, and that is that it's well to be off with the old woman before you're on with the new. Oh, I'm sorry, you told me. You might have waited for my death. It's not far off now.
Oh Lord.
Okay, allow me.
No, Paramore, it's not my liver now. It's private business.
Good morning, Miss Craven. Won't you join us at lunch? Paramore's coming too.
Thanks, I shall be very pleased.
What the dickens are you doing there, Charteris?
Nothing. It's such a confounded room to get about in.
Yes, isn't it?
May I take you down?
No, really. You know it's against the rules of the club to coddle women in any way. Whoever's nearest to the door goes first.
Oh, well, if you insist. Come, gentlemen, let us go into lunch in the Ibsen fashion, the unsexed fashion. Huh.
Come, Julia.
Yes, Daddy dear, presently. Now, don't wait for me, I'll come in a moment. It's all right, Daddy.
Oh, don't be long, my dear.
I'm off.
Aren't you coming?
Oh, no. Unhand me, Julia. If you don't let me go, I'll scream for help.
Leonard! How can you be so rough with me, dear? Did you get my letter?
burnt it, along with hers.
Hers? Has she written to you?
Yes, to break off with me on your account. Oh, you are pleased, wretch. Now you have lost the last scrap of my regard.
Hello, Charteris. How are you getting on? Have you seen Grace Tranfield this morning? You generally know where she is to be found.
I shall never know any more, Sylvia. She has quarrelled with me.
Sylvia? How often am I to tell you that I'm not Sylvia at the club?
I forgot. I beg your pardon, craven old chap.
That's better. A little overdone, but better.
Don't be a fool, silly.
Remember, Julia, if you please, that here we are members of the club, not sisters. I don't take liberties with you here on family grounds. Don't you take any with me.
Quite right, Craven. Down with the tyranny of the older sister.
You ought to know better than to encourage a child to make herself ridiculous, Leonard, even at my expense.
Your lunch will be cold, Julia.
What has become of you, Miss Craven? Your father's getting quite uneasy. We're all waiting for you.
Sir, I've just been reminded. Thank you.
More, Orestenia.
What's up, Charteris? Julia been making love to you?
No, blowing me up for making love to Grace.
Serve you right. You are an awful devil for philandering.
Do you consider it good club form to talk that way to a man who might well nearly be your father?
Oh, I know you, my lad.
Then you know that I never pay any special attention to any woman.
Do you know, Leonard, I really believe you. I don't think you care a bit more for one woman than for another.
You mean I don't care a bit less for one woman than another?
That makes it worse. But what I mean is that you never bother about there being only women. You talk to them just as you do to me or any other fellow. That's the secret of your success. You can't think how sick they get of being treated with respect due to their sex.
If Julia only had your wisdom, Craven.
She can't take things easy, can she, old man? But don't you be afraid of breaking her heart. She gets over her little tragedies. We found that out at home when our great sorrow came.
What was that?
I mean, when we learned that poor Papa had Paramore's disease. But it was too late to inoculate Papa. All they could do was prolong his life for 2 years or more by putting him on a strict diet. Poor old boy, they cut off his liquor and he's not allowed to eat meat.
Your father appears to me to be uncommonly well.
Yes, you would think he was a great deal better, but the microbes are at work, slowly but surely. In another year, it will be all over. Poor old Dad. It's unfeeling to talk about him in this attitude. I must sit down properly. I should like Papa to live forever just to take the conceit out of Paramore. I believe he's in love with Julia.
In love with Julia? A ray of hope on the horizon. Do you really mean it?
I should think I do. Why do you suppose he's hanging out about the club today in a beautiful new coat and tie instead of attending to his patients? That lunch with Julia will finish him. He'll ask Daddy's consent before they come back. I bet you 3 to 1 he will, in anything you please.
Gloves?
No. Cigarettes.
Done. But what does she think about it? Does she give him any encouragement?
Oh, the usual thing, enough to keep any other woman from getting him.
Just so, I understand. Now listen to me. I am going to speak as a philosopher. Julia is jealous of everybody. If she saw you flirting with Paramore, she'd begin to value him directly. You might play it up a little, Craven, for my sake, eh?
You are too awful, Leonard. For shame. However, anything to oblige a fellow of tonight. I'll bear your fare in mind. But I think it would be more effective if you got Grace to do it.
Think so? Perhaps you're right.
Dr. Paramore, Dr. Paramore, Dr. Paramore.
They ought to get that boy's voice properly cultivated. It's a disgrace to the club.
Dr. Paramore is in the dining room.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, where are you taking that paper? It belongs to this room.
It's Dr. Paramore's particular orders, miss. The British Medical Journal has always to be brought to him directly as it comes.
What chic. Charteris, oughtn't we to stop this on principle?
Certainly not. Principle's the poorest reason I know for making yourself nasty.
Bosh. Ibsen.
Off with you, boy. Dr. Paramore's waiting breathless with expectation.
Indeed, sir.
That boy will make his way in this country. He has no sense of humor.
Here you are at last, Tranfield, old girl. I've been waiting for you this last hour. I'm starving.
All right, dear. Did you get my letter?
Yes, I wish you wouldn't write on those confounded blue letter cards.
Shall I go down first and secure a table?
Do, old boy.
Don't be too long.
Well?
I'm afraid to face you after last night. Can you imagine a more horrible scene? Don't you hate the very sight of me after it?
Oh, no.
Then you ought to. Oh, it was hideous. An insult, an outrage. A nice end to all my plans for making you happy, for making you an exception to all the women who swear I have made them miserable.
I am not at all miserable. I'm sorry, but I shan't break my heart.
No, yours is a thoroughbred heart. You don't scream and cry every time it's pinched. That's why you are the only possible woman for me.
Not now. Never anymore.
Never? What do you mean?
What I say, Leonard.
Jilted again. The fickleness of women I love is only equaled by the infernal constancy of the women who love me. Well, I see how it is, Grace. You can't get over the horrible scene last night. Imagine her saying I had kissed her within 2 days.
Was that not true?
True? No, a thumping lie.
I am so glad. That was the only thing that really hurt me.
Just why she said it. Adorable of you to care, my darling.
Well, remember, it's all broken off.
Ah, yes. You have my heart in your hands. Break it. Throw my happiness out of the window.
Leonard, does your happiness really depend on me?
Absolutely. No. Why should I lie to you? My happiness depends on nobody but myself. I could do without you.
So you shall. Thank you for the truth. Now I will tell you the truth.
No, please don't. As a philosopher, it's my business to tell other people the truth, but it's not their business to tell it to me. I don't like it. It hurts.
It's only that I love you.
Ah, that's not a philosophic truth. You may tell me that as often as you like.
Yes, Leonard, but I am an advanced woman. I'm what my father calls a new woman. I quite agree with all your ideas.
Well, that's a nice thing for a respectable woman to say. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
I am quite in earnest about them too, though you are not, and I will never marry a man I love too much. It would give him a terrible advantage over me. I should be utterly in his power. That's what the new woman is like. Isn't she right, Mr. Philosopher?
Oh, the struggle between the philosopher and the man is fearful, Grace. But the philosopher says you're right.
I know I am right, and so we must part.
Not at all. You must marry someone else. Then I'll come and philander with you.
Oh, I say, come along. I'm starving.
So am I. I'll lunch with you today, if I may.
I thought you would. I've ordered soup for 3. You can watch Paramore from our table. He's pretending to read the British Medical Journal, but he must be making up his mind for the plunge. He looks green with nervousness.
Good luck to him.
Angus? Are you there?
What's the matter? Has everyone gone mad today? What do you mean by suddenly getting up from the table and tearing away like that? What does Paramore mean by reading his paper and not answering when he's spoken to? Come. Won't my pet tell her own father what? What the devil is wrong with everybody? Do pull yourself straight, Julia, before Cuthbertson comes. He's only paying the bill. He'll be here in a moment.
I couldn't bear it any longer. Oh, to see them sitting there at lunch together, laughing, chatting, making game of me. I should have screamed out in another moment. I should have taken a knife and killed her. I should have just stood up.
I'm afraid you've had a very poor lunch, Dan. It's disheartening to see you picking at a few beans and drinking soda water. I wonder how you live.
That's all he ever takes, Mr. Cuthbertson, I assure you. He hates to be bothered about it.
Where's Paramore?
Reading his paper. I asked him, wasn't he coming? But he did not hear me. It's amazing how anything scientific absorbs him. Clever man, monstrously clever man.
Oh, yes, that's all very well, Joe, but it's not good manners at table. He should shut up the shop sometimes. But heaven knows I'm only too anxious to forget his science since it has pronounced my doom.
You mustn't think about that, Craven. Perhaps he was mistaken. But he certainly is a very clever fellow. He thinks twice before he commits himself.
What's the matter, Paramore?
Are you ill?
No bad news, I hope.
The worst of news. Terrible news. Fatal news. My disease.
Well, you mean my disease?
I mean my disease, Paramore's disease, the disease I discovered, the work of my life. Look here. If this is true, it was all a mistake. There was no such disease.
And you call this bad news? Now, really, Paramore.
It's natural for you to think of yourself. I don't blame you. All invalids are selfish. Only a scientific man can feel what I feel now. It's all the fault of the wickedly sentimental laws of this country. I was not able to make experiments enough. Only 3 dogs and a monkey. Think of that. With all of Europe full of professional rivals, men burning to prove me wrong. There's freedom in France. Enlightened Republican France. One Frenchman experiments on 200 monkeys to disprove my theory. Another sacrifices 36 pounds, 300 dogs at 3 francs apiece to upset the monkey experiments. A third proves them both wrong by a single experiment in which he gets the temperature of a camel's liver 60 degrees below 0. And now comes the cursed Italian who has ruined me. He has a government grant to buy animals besides the run of the largest hospital in Italy. But I won't be beaten by an Italian. I'll go to Italy myself. I'll rediscover my disease. I know it exists. I feel it, and I'll prove it if I have to experiment on every mortal animal that's got a liver at all.
Am I to understand, Paramore, that you took it on yourself to pass sentence of death? Yes, of death on me on the strength of 3 dogs and an infernal monkey?
Yes, that was all I could get a license for.
Oh, now, upon my soul. Paramore, I'm vexed at this. I don't wish to be unfriendly, but I'm extremely vexed, really. Confounded, do you realize what you've done? You've cut off my meat and drink for a year. Maybe an object of public scorn, a miserable vegetarian and a teetotaler.
Well, you can make up for lost time. There, you can read for yourself. The camel was fed on beef dissolved in alcohol, and he gained weight under it. Eat and drink as much as you please.
It's very easy for you to talk, Paramore. But what am I to say to the humanitarian societies and the vegetarian societies that have made me a vice president?
Aha! You made a virtue of it, did you, Dan?
I made a virtue of necessity, Joe. No one can blame me.
Well, never mind, Daddy. Come back to the dining room and have a good beefsteak.
Oh, no, I've lost my old manly taste for it. My very nature has been corrupted by living on pap. And that's what comes of all this vivisection. You go experimenting on horses, and of course the result is that you try to get me into condition by feeding me on beans.
Well, if they've done you good, so much the better for you.
Well, that's all very well, but it's very vexing. You don't half see how serious it is to make a man believe that he's only another year to live. You really don't. I can't help saying it. I've made my will, which was altogether unnecessary, and I've been reconciled to a lot of people I'd quarreled with, people I can't stand under ordinary circumstances. And I've let the girls get round me at home to an extent I should never have done if I'd had my life before me. Well, I've done a lot of serious thinking and reading and extra church going. And now it turns out to be simply waste of time. On my soul, it's too disgusting. I'd far rather die like a man when I said I would.
Perhaps you may. Your heart's shaky if that's any satisfaction to you.
You must excuse me, Paramore, if I say that I no longer feel any confidence in your opinion as a medical man. I paid you a pretty stiff fee for that consultation when you condemned me, and I can't say I think you gave me value for it.
That's unanswerable, Colonel Craven. I shall return the fee.
Oh, it's not the money, but I think you ought to realize your position. Well, perhaps it was a nasty thing of me to allude to it.
Not at all. You're quite in the right, Colonel Craven. My diagnosis was wrong, and I must take the consequences.
No, don't say that. It was natural enough. My liver is enough to set any man's diagnosis wrong.
Well, let's say no more about it. I congratulate you, Craven, and I hope you may long be spared. No, Dan, your daughter's first.
Dear old daddy.
Is Julia glad that the old daddy is let off for a few years more?
Oh, so glad. So glad.
Hello.
Oh, tell her the news, Julia. Would sound ridiculous for me.
Silly. Only think, Dad's not ill at all. It was only a mistake of Dr. Paramore's. Oh, dear.
I knew it. Of course, it was nothing but eating too much. I always said Paramore was an arse.
Never mind, Miss Craven. That is what's being said all over Europe now. Never mind.
I'm so sorry, Dr. Paramore. You must excuse your daughter's feelings.
It evidently doesn't make much difference to you, Sylvia.
I'm not going to be sentimental over it, Dad, you may bet. Besides, I knew it was nonsense all along.
Oh.
Oh, dear old Dad, why should your days be numbered more than anyone else's? Come to the smoking room and let's see what you can do after teetotaling for a year.
Oh, go, little go. Shall we come, Joe? You'll be the better for a pick-me-up after all this emotion.
I'm not ashamed of it, Dan. It's done me good. Would do you good, too, if you had eyes and ears to take it in.
Who?
Why, good old Henrik, of course.
Henrik?
Ibsen, man, Ibsen.
By the way, Paramore.
Yes.
You weren't in earnest that time about my heart, were you?
Oh, nothing. There's a slight murmur, mitral valves a little worn perhaps, but they'll last your time if you're careful. Don't smoke too much.
What? More privations? Now, really, Paramore?
Excuse me, I can't pursue the subject.
Well, I won't. Come, Paramore, I'm not selfish, believe me. I can feel for your disappointment, but you must face it like a man. And after all, now, really, doesn't this show that there's a lot of rot about modern science? Well, between ourselves, you know, it's horribly cruel, you must admit. It's a deuced nasty thing to go ripping up and crucifying camels and monkeys. It must blunt all the finer feelings sooner or later.
How many camels and horses and men were ripped up in that Sudan campaign where you won your Victoria Cross, Colonel Craven?
Well, that was fair fighting. A very different thing, Paramore.
Yes, martinis and machine guns against naked spearmen.
Look, I took my chance with the rest, Dr. Paramore. I risked my own life. Don't you forget that.
And I've risked mine, as all doctors do oftener than any soldier.
Well, that's true. No, I didn't think of that. Well, I beg your pardon, Paramore. I'll never say another word against your profession, but I hope you'll let me stick to the good old-fashioned shaking up treatment for my liver. A clinking run across the country with the hounds.
Isn't that rather cruel? Pack of dogs ripping up a fox.
Oh, please don't begin arguing again. Do you go to the smoking room, Daddy? Mr. Cuthbertson will wonder what has become of you.
Oh, very well, I'll go. But you're really not reasonable today, Paramore, to talk that way of fair sport. Well, I'm off.
Don't look so disappointed, Dr. Paramore. Cheer up. You've been most kind to us and you've done Papa a lot of good.
Oh, how beautiful it is for you to say that to me, Miss Craven.
I hate to see anyone unhappy. I can't bear unhappiness.
Well, what's the matter?
Charming woman, isn't she, Paramore?
I
How have you managed to fascinate her?
do you really mean, excuse me, this is not a subject I care to jest about.
Why don't you get married, Paramore? You know, it's a scandalous thing for a man of your profession to be single.
That's my own business, not yours.
No, not at all. It's preeminently a social question. You're going to get married, aren't you?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, don't say that. Why?
Allow me to call your attention to that.
Paramore, you alarm me more than I can say. You've been and muffled this business somehow. I know perfectly well what you've been up to, and I fully expect to find you a joyfully accepted suitor.
Yes, you've been watching me because you admire Miss Craven yourself. Well, you may go in and win now. You'll be pleased to hear that I'm a ruined man.
You? Ruined? How? The turf?
The turf, certainly not.
Paramore, if the loan of all I possess will help you over this difficulty, you're welcome to it.
Chartres, are you joking?
Why on earth do you always suspect me of joking? I never was more serious in my life.
Oh, then I beg your pardon. I thought the news would please you.
Oh, my dear fellow.
I see I was wrong. I'm really very sorry. And now you may as well learn the truth. I'd rather you heard it from me than the gossip of the club. My liver discovery had been
Confirmed? Oh, I see the poor colonel's doomed.
No, on the contrary, it has been called into question. The colonel now believes himself to be in perfectly good health, and my friendly relations with the Cravens are entirely spoiled.
Who told him about it?
I did, of course, the moment I read the news, and yes.
Why, man, you've been the messenger of glad tidings. Didn't you congratulate him?
Congratulate him? Congratulate a man who, on the worst blow pathological science has received for the last 300 years.
No. Congratulate him on having saved his life. Congratulate Julia on having her own father spared. Swear that your discovery and your reputation are as nothing to you compared with the pleasure of restoring happiness to the household in which the best hopes of your life are centered. Confound it, man. You'll never get married if you can't turn things to account with a woman on these little ways.
Excuse me, but my self-respect is dearer to me even than Miss Craven. I cannot trifle with scientific questions for the sake of personal advantage.
Well, this beats me. The nonconformist conscience is bad enough, but the scientific conscience is the very devil. Now look here, Paramore. I've got no conscience in that sense at all. I loathe it as I loathe all snares of idealism, but I have some common humanity and common sense. Come, what is a really scientific theory? A true theory, isn't it?
No doubt.
For instance, you have a theory about Craven's liver, eh?
I still believe that to be a true theory, though it has been upset for the moment.
And you have a theory that it would be pleasant to be married to Julia.
I suppose so, in a sense.
That theory also will be upset probably before you're a year older.
Always cynical, Chartres.
Oh, never mind that. Now, it's a perfectly damnable thing for you to hope that your liver theory is true, because it amounts to hoping that Craven will die an agonizing death. But it's amiable and humane to hope that your theory about Julia is right, because it amounts to hoping that she may live happily ever after.
I do hope that with all my soul. I mean, with all function of hoping.
Then, since both theories are equally scientific, Why not devote yourself as a humane man to proving the amiable theory rather than the damnable one?
But how?
I'll tell you. You think I'm fond of Julia myself. So I am, but then I'm fond of everybody. So I don't count. Besides, if you try the scientific experiment of asking her whether she loves me, she'll tell you that she hates me and despises me. So I'm out of the running. Nevertheless, like you, I hope that she may be happy with all my... What did you call your soul?
Go on. Finish what you were going to say.
I don't know that I have anything more to say. If I were you, I should invite the Cravens to tea in honor of the Colonel's escape from horrible doom. By the way, if you're done with the British Medical Journal, I should like to see how they've smashed your theory up.
Certainly, if you wish it. I've no objection. I admit that the Italian experiments apparently upset my theory, but please remember that it is doubtful, extremely doubtful, whether anything can be proved by experimenting on animals.
No, it doesn't matter. I don't intend to make any.
How do you do, Dr. Paramore? So glad to see you.
Ah, thanks. Quite well, I hope.
Quite, thank you. You're looking overworked. We must take more care of you, Doctor.
You're very kind.
Oh, it is you who are too kind to your patients. You sacrifice yourself, have little rest. Come and talk to me. Tell me all about the latest scientific discoveries and what I ought to read to keep myself up to date. But perhaps you're busy.
No, not at all. Only too delighted.
They all love a doctor. They can say what they like to them. Looking for me, Julia?
How you startled me.
Shh! I want to show you something. Look.
That woman.
My young woman carrying off your young man.
What do you mean? Don't you dare insinuate that
Shh!
you're...
Don't disturb them.
Why are they whispering like that?
Because they don't want anybody to hear what they are saying to one another.
What is he showing her?
Probably a diagram of the liver.
Oh.
Stop. Be careful, Julia.
You seem to have found a very interesting book, Dr. Paramore. May I ask what it is? Good words. You fool!
Idiot, she'll have you turned out of the club for this.
She can't. Can she?
What's the matter, Miss Craven?
Oh, nothing. My fault, a stupid practical joke. I beg your pardon. And Mrs. Cranfield's?
It is not your fault in the least, Mr. Charteris. Dr. Paramore, will you oblige me by finding Sylvia Craven for me, if you can?
But...
I want you to go now, if you please.
Certainly.
You are going with him, Charteris.
You will not leave me here to be insulted by this woman, Mr. Charteris.
When two ladies quarrel in this club, it is against the rules to settle it when there are gentlemen present, especially the gentlemen they are quarreling about. I presume you do not wish to break that rule, Miss Craven. Now, trot off.
Certainly. Certainly.
Now, what have you to say to me?
Don't take him from me. Don't. Don't be so cruel. Give him back to me. You don't know what you're doing. What our past has been, how I love him. You don't know any of it.
Get up! And don't be a fool. Suppose anyone comes in and sees you with that ridiculous attitude.
I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't care what I'm doing. I'm too miserable. Won't you listen to me?
Do you suppose I am a man to be imposed on by this sort of rubbish?
You intend to take him from me, then?
Do you expect me to help you keep him after the way you have behaved?
I know I was wrong to act as I did last night. I beg your pardon. I'm sorry. I was mad.
Not a bit mad. You calculated to an inch how far you could go. When he is present to stand between us and play out the scene with you, I count for nothing. When we are alone, you fall back on your natural way of getting anything you want, crying for it like a baby until it is given to you.
You learnt this from him.
I learnt it from yourself, last night and now. How I hate to be a woman when I see by you what wretched childish creatures we are. Those two men would cut you dead and have you turned out of the club if you were a man and had behaved in such a way before them. But because you are only a woman, they are forbearing, sympathetic, gallant. If you had a scrap of self-respect, their indulgence would make you creep all over. I understand now why Charteris has no respect for women.
How dare you say that?
Dare? I love him, and I have refused his offer to marry me.
You've refused?
Yes, because I will not give myself to any man who has learnt how to treat women from you and your like. I can do without his love, but not without his respect, and it is your fault that I cannot have both. Take his love then, and much good may it do you. Run to him and beg him to have mercy on you and take you back.
What a liar you are. He loved me before he ever saw you, before he ever dreamt of you, you pitiful thing. Do you think I need to go down on my knees to men to make them come to me? That may be your experience, you creature with no figure. It's not mine. There are dozens of men who would give their souls for a look from me. I've only to lift my finger.
Lift it then, and see whether he will come.
Oh, I should like to kill you. I don't know why I don't.
Yes, you like to get out of your difficulties cheaply, at other people's expense. It is something to boast of, isn't it, that dozens of men would make love to you if you invited them?
I suppose it's better to be like you, with a cold heart and a serpent's tongue. Thank heaven I have a heart, that's why you can hurt me, as I cannot hurt you. Then you are a coward. You are giving him up to me, without a struggle.
Yes, it is for you to struggle. I wish you success.
Here I am, sent by the faithful paramour. He hinted that I'd better bring the elder members of the family too. Here they are. What's the row?
Nothing, dear. There's no row.
Daddy!
Oh, my precious. What's the matter?
She's going to have me expelled from the club and we shall be disgraced. Can she do it, Daddy?
Well, really, the rules of this club are so extraordinary that I don't know. May I ask, Mrs. Tranfield, whether you have any complaint to make of my daughter's conduct?
Yes, Colonel Craven. I am going to complain to the committee.
I knew you'd overdo it someday, Julia.
This is my daughter, Mrs. Tranfield, Dan. Grace, this is my old friend, Colonel Craven.
Where's that? May I ask the ground of complaint, Mrs. Tranfield?
Simply that Miss Craven is essentially a womanly woman and as such not eligible for membership.
It's false. I'm not a womanly woman. I was guaranteed when I joined, just as you were.
By Mr. Charteris, I think, at your own request. I shall call him as a witness to your thoroughly womanly conduct just now in his presence and Dr. Paramore's.
Cuthbertson, are they joking or am I dreaming?
It's real, Dan. You're awake.
Dear old Rip Van Winkle.
Well, Mrs. Tranfield, all I can say is that I hope you will succeed in establishing your complaint and that Julia may soon see the last of this most outrageous institution.
May I come in?
Yes, you're wanted here as a witness. It's a bad case of womanliness.
You understand. I shall expect your support before the committee.
If you have a scrap of manhood, you will take my part.
But then I shall be expelled for being a manly man. Besides, I'm on the committee myself. I can't act as judge and witness too. You must apply to Paramore. He saw it all.
Where is Dr. Paramore?
Just gone home.
What is Dr. Paramore's number in Seville Row?
79.
Grace, go after her. Don't let her get beforehand with Paramore. She'll tell him the most heartbreaking stories about how she's been treated and get him round completely.
Sylvia, is that the way to speak of your sister, miss? I assure you, Mrs. Transfield, Dr. Paramore has just invited us all to take afternoon tea with him. And if my daughter has gone to his house, she is simply taking advantage of his invitation to extricate herself from a very embarrassing scene here. We are all going there. Come, Sylvia.
Oh, stop! What hurry is there? Can't you give the man time?
Time? For what?
Well, to get a little rest, you know, a busy professional man like that. He's not had a moment to himself all day.
But Julia's with him.
Well, no matter. She's only one person. Then she ought to have an opportunity of laying her case before him. As a member of the committee, I think that's only just. Be reasonable, Craven. Give him half an hour.
What do you mean by this, Charteris?
Nothing, I assure you. Only common consideration for poor Paramore.
You've some motive. Craven, I strongly advise that we go at once.
No. It's not good for your liver, Craven, to rush about immediately after lunch.
His liver's cured. Come on, Craven.
Oh, Cuthbertson, you're mad. Paramore's going to propose to Julia. We must give them time. He's not a man to come to the point in 3 minutes, as you or I would. Don't you see? That'll get me out of the difficulty we were speaking of this morning. You and I and Cuthbertson, you remember?
But now, is this a thing to say plump out before everybody, Charteris? Confound it, have you no decency?
None whatever.
No, don't be unkind, Cuthbertson. Back me up. My future, her future, Mrs. Tranfield's future, Craven's future, everybody's future depends on our finding Julia, Paramore's affianced bride, when we go over to Savile Row. He's certain to propose if you'll only give him time. You know you're a kindly and sensible man, as well as a deucedly clever one, Cuthbertson, in spite of all your nonsense. Say a word for me.
I'm quite willing to leave the decision to Cuthbertson, and I have no doubt whatsoever as to what that decision will be.
I am now going to speak as a man of the world, that is, without moral responsibility.
Quite so, Joe. Of course.
Therefore, though I have no sympathy whatever with Charteris's views, I think we can do no harm by waiting, say, 10 minutes or so.
There's nobody like you after all, Cuthbertson, when there's a difficult situation to be judged.
Oh, well, Joe, if that is your decision, I must keep my word and abide by it. Better sit down and make ourselves comfortable, I suppose.
I can't sit down, I'm too restless. The fact is, Julia has made me so nervous that I can't answer for myself until I know her decision. Mrs. Tranfield will tell you what a time I've had lately. Julia's really a most determined woman, I know.
Well, upon my life, upon my honour and conscience, now, really, I shall go this instant. Come on, Sylvia. Cuthbertson, I hope you'll mark your sense of this sort of thing by coming on to Paramore's with us at once.
Oh, Craven, you're trifling with your daughter's happiness. I only ask 5 minutes more.
Not 5 seconds. 5, for shame, Charteris.
Bungler.
Serve you right, you duffer.
Oh, these headstrong old men. Nothing to be done now but to go with them and delay the colonel as much as possible. So I'm afraid I must leave you.
Not at all. Paramore invited me too when we were talking over there.
You don't mean to say that you're coming?
Most certainly. Do you suppose I will let that woman think that I'm afraid to meet her? Oh, come, don't be silly. You'll not overtake the colonel if you delay any longer.
Why was I ever born, child of misfortune that I am? Well, if you must come, you must. By the way, what happened after I left you?
I gave her a lecture on her behavior, which she will remember to the last day of her life.
That was right, darling. Just one kiss to soothe me.
Foolish boy. Now, come along.
And curtain. All right. Another 5 minutes. We shall resume at, well, let's say 10 till 3.
Thank you.
Wow. There are a tremendous number of more changes in this script than I've ever seen in a short play before. The various editions.
Hi, David.
Hello there.
I was, oh, hang on. I was trying to remember why I thought the character's name was Charteris, pronounced that way. And I suddenly recalled there was a very popular series of sort of thriller, knight in shining armor, sort of slightly villainous, but always on the right side, books called The Saint.
Oh, yes.
And they were written by Leslie Charteris. That was how his name was always pronounced when they did it. So that's why I was saying I thought it was Charteris. I knew I'd heard it. I knew I'd heard it so many times.
Oh, yes, yeah. Now that you mention it, because I'm familiar with that series too.
Yeah.
I don't know why
Roger Moore doing his.
I didn't connect the dots.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know which version is the original on this, but there are tremendous variations between my edition that I'm using and ones. I'm not using the one that was online. I should have, obviously.
Yes, I noticed a
But I
couple.
ran out of, well.
You called me at one point.
Usually when he republished, he made small changes, but somehow in this one, he made a lot of changes.
Yeah.
So it's,
Well, Arms and the Man.
A few awkward moments, but it's basically.
Yeah, I mean, Arms and the Man, he basically rewrote the thing.
Did he really?
Well, large parts of it. I suppose because just down from us is the Horniman Museum. And the Horniman family were Horniman tea. Granddad made his millions in Horniman tea. And the granddaughter was Annie Horniman. And she she was an artist and persuaded her father to let her study at the Sloane School, where she met an actress by the name of Florence Farr. And then used some of her funds to finance Florence Farr's first season of her own company, the Avenue Theatre of London, which is no longer in existence. They did a W.B. Yeats play. And the second play they were going to do, a new play, fell through. So Florence Farr chatted up her old friend GBS, and he quickly dashed the ending off to Arms and the Man. And that was the premiere of it. And Florence Farr played Luca.
Right.
But then he reworked it in the 30s, late 20s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that makes sense if he just threw it together quickly because he was pressed for time.
Yeah, he was just helping her out.
Yeah.
She ended up his mistress for part of it, for some point anyway, as well. And
I suspect that the original version may not have even been published. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, no, you can get it. It is around, but it's and we looked at it when we did it at Peekskill Rep, but it is not as good as the second version.
I'm sure it isn't. All right, we better get back to doing this.
Right you are.
Is everybody here?
Yeah.
Ready to go?
Ready.
Okay. Act 3. Paramore's reception room in Savile Row. Viewing the room from the front windows, the door is seen in the opposite wall near the left-hand corner. Another door, a light, noiseless one covered with green baize, leading to the consulting room, is in the right-hand wall toward the back. The fireplace is on the left. At the nearer corner of it, a couch is placed at right angles to the wall. So, the other corner, an easy chair. On the right, the wall is occupied by a bookcase, further forward than the green raised door. Beyond the door is a cabinet of anatomical preparations with a framed photograph of Rembrandt's School of Anatomy hanging on the wall above it. In front, a little to the right, a tea table. Paramore is seated in a round back chair on casters, pouring out tea. Julia sits opposite him with her back to the fire.
There. Making tea is one of the few things I consider myself able to do thoroughly well. Cake?
Oh, no, thank you. I don't like sweet things.
Anything wrong with the tea?
Oh, no, it's very nice.
Oh, I'm afraid I'm a very bad entertainer. The fact is I'm too professional. I only shine in consultation. I almost wish you had something the matter with you so I might call out my knowledge and sympathy. As it is, I can only admire you and feel how pleasant it is to have you here.
And pet me and say pretty things to me? I wonder you don't offer me a saucer of milk at once.
Why?
Because you seem to regard me very much as if I were a Persian cat.
Miss Craven,
No, you needn't protest. I'm used to it. It's the only sort of attachment I always seem to inspire. You can't think how flattering it is.
My dear Miss Craven, what a cynical thing to say. You who are loved at the sight by the people in the street who pass. Why, in the club, I can tell by the faces of the men whether you've been lately in the room or not.
No, I hate that look in their faces. Do you know that I've never had one human being care for me since I was born?
That's not true, Miss Craven. Even if it were true of your father and of Charteris, who loves you madly in spite of your dislike for him, it is not true of me.
Who told you that? About Charteris?
Why, he himself.
He cares for only one person in the world, and that is himself. There's not in the whole nature one unselfish spot. He'd not spend an hour of his real life with... You are all alike. Every one of you. Even my father only makes a pet of me.
I don't deserve this from you. Indeed, I do not.
Then why do you talk about me with Charteris behind my back?
We said nothing disparaging of you. No, nobody shall ever do that in my presence. We spoke of the subject nearest our hearts.
His heart. Oh God, his heart.
I'm afraid you love him for all that, Miss Craven.
If he says that, he lies. If ever you hear it said that I cared for him, contradict it. It's false.
Miss Craven, is the way clear for me then?
What do you mean?
You must see what I mean. Contradict the room of your attachment to Charteris, not by words, it's gone too far for that, but by becoming my wife. Believe me, it is not merely your beauty that attracts me. I know other beautiful women. It is your heart, your sincerity, your sterling reality, your great gifts of character that are only half developed because you've never been understood by those around you.
Have you really seen all that in me?
I've felt it. I've been alone in the world, and I need you, Julia. This is how I've divined that you also are alone in the world.
Oh, you're right there. I am indeed all alone in the world.
With you, I should not be alone. And you with me.
You? No, I can't bring myself. I don't know what to do. You will expect too much from me.
I have more faith in you than I have more faith in you than you have in yourself. Your nature is richer than you think.
Do you really believe that I'm not the shallow, jealous, devilish-tempered creature they all pretend I am?
I am ready to place my happiness in your hands. Does that prove what I think of you?
Yes. I believe you really care for me. No, I cannot. It's impossible.
Is it Charteris?
Oh, you think that? Listen to me. If I say yes, will you promise not to touch me? To give me time to accustom myself to the idea of new relations?
I promise most faithfully I would not press you for the world.
Then yes, I promise. Now, not another word of it. Let us forget it. Give me some more tea. Be good to me, Percy. I need it sorely.
You called me Percy. Hurrah! Oh, delighted to see you here with me, Colonel Craven. And you too, Charteris. Sit down. Where are the others?
Sylvia has dragged Cuthbertson off to the Burlington Arcade to buy some caramels. He likes to encourage her eating caramels. He thinks it's a womanly taste. Besides, he likes them himself. They'll be here presently.
Yes, and Charteris has been trying to persuade me that there is a sort of shortcut between Cork Street and Savile Row, somewhere in Conduit Street. Now, did you ever hear such nonsense? And then he said my coat was getting shabby and wanted me to go into Pools and order a new one. Paramore, is my coat shabby?
Not that I can see.
Well, I should think not. And then he He wanted to draw me into a dispute about the Egyptian war. We should have been here a quarter of an hour ago, only for his nonsense.
I did my best to keep him from disturbing you, Paramore.
You've come in the nick of time. Colonel Craven, I have something very particular to say to you.
Oh, in private, Paramore. Now, really, it must be in private.
Of course, I was about to suggest my consulting room. There's nobody there. Miss Craven, will you excuse me? Charteris will entertain you until I return.
Oh, I say, hadn't you better wait till the others come?
Oh, no need for further delay, my best friend. Will you come, Colonel?
Yeah, at your service, Paramore, at your service.
Don't, Julia. Now, don't abuse your advantage. You've got me here at your mercy. Be good for once. Don't make a scene.
Do you suppose I'm going to touch you?
No, of course not.
Come here. I have something to say to you.
Yes?
Come here, I say. I'm not going to shout across the room at you. Are you afraid of me?
Horribly.
Has that woman told you that she's given you up to me without an attempt to defend her conquest?
Show that you are capable of the same sacrifice. Give me up too.
Sacrifice? So you think I'm dying to marry you, do you?
I am afraid your intentions have been honorable, Julia.
You cad.
I confess I am something either more or less than a gentleman, Julia. You once gave me the benefit of the doubt.
Indeed. I never told you so. If you cannot behave like a gentleman, you'd better go back to the society of the woman who's given you up. If such a cold-blooded, cowardly creature can be called a woman. I know you now, Leonard Charteris, through and through. In all your falseness, your petty spite, your cruelty and your vanity. The place you coveted has been won by a man more worthy of it.
Do you mean, out with it? Have you accepted?
I am engaged to Dr. Paramore.
My own Julia!
How dare you? Are you mad? Do you wish me to call Dr. Paramore?
Oh, call everybody, my darling, everybody in London. Now I shall no longer have to be brutal to defend myself, to go in fear of you. How I have looked forward to this day. You know now that I don't want you to marry me or to love me. Paramore can have all that. I only want to look on and rejoice disinterestedly in the happiness of my dear Julia, my beautiful Julia. No use to threaten me now. I am not afraid of those hands, the loveliest hands in the world.
How have you the face to turn around like this after insulting and torturing me?
Oh, never mind, dearest. You never did understand me, and you never will. Our vivisecting friend has made a successful experiment at last.
It is you who are the vivisector, a far crueler, more wanton vivisector than he.
Yes, but then I learn so much more from my experiments than he does. And the victims learn as much as I do. That's where my moral superiority comes in.
Well, you should not experiment on me anymore. Go to your grace if you want a victim. She'll be a tough one.
And you drove me to propose to her to escape from you. Suppose she had accepted me. Where should I be now?
Where I am, I suppose, now that I've accepted Paramore.
But I should have made Grace unhappy. However, now that I come to think of it, you'll make Paramore unhappy. And yet if you refuse him, he would be in despair. Poor devil.
He's a better man than you.
I grant you that, my dear.
Don't call me your dear. What do you mean by saying I shall make him unhappy? Am I not good enough for him?
Well, that depends on what you mean by good enough.
You might have made me good if you had chosen to. You had a great power over me. I was like a child in your hands, and you knew it.
Yes, my dear. That means that whenever you got jealous and flew into a violent rage, I could always depend on its ending happily if I only waited long enough and petted you very hard all the time. When you had your fling and called the object of your jealousy every name you could lay your tongue to and abused me to your heart's content for a couple of hours, then the reaction would come and you would at last subside into the soothing rapture of affection which gave you a sensation of being angelically good and forbearing. Oh, I know that sort of goodness. You may have thought on these occasions that I was bringing out your latent amiability, but I thought you were bringing out mine and using up rather more than your fair share of it.
According to you, then, I have no good in me. I am an utterly vile, worthless woman. Is that it?
Yes, if you are to be judged as you judge others. From the conventional point of view, there is nothing to be said for you, Julia, nothing. That's why I have to find some other point of view to save my self-respect when I remember how I have loved you. Oh, what I have learned from you. From you, who could learn nothing from me. I made a fool of you, and you brought me wisdom. I broke your heart, and yet you brought me joy. I made you curse your womanhood, and you revealed my manhood to me. Blessings forever, forever on my Julia's name.
Stop talking that nasty, sneering stuff.
Oh, she calls it nasty, sneering stuff. Well, I'll never talk like that to you again, dearest. It only means that you are a beautiful woman and that we all love you.
Don't say that. I hate it. Sounds as if I were a mere animal.
A fine animal is a very wonderful thing. Don't disparage animals, Julia.
That is what you really think me?
Come, Julia, you don't expect me to admire you for your moral qualities, do you?
I have seen you very much infatuated with this depraved creature who has no moral qualities.
Keep off, Julia. Remember your obligations to Paramore.
Never mind, Paramore. That's my business. If the people you talk so cleverly to could know you as I know you, sometimes I wonder at myself for ever caring for you.
Only sometimes?
You fraud! You humbug! You miserable little plaster saint! Oh.
Julia.
What's the matter?
Nothing. You'll soon get used to this, Paramore.
No, really, Julia, this is a very extraordinary way to behave. It's not fair to Paramore.
If Dr. Paramore objects, he can break off our engagement. Pray, don't hesitate.
Do you wish me to break it off?
Nonsense! Don't act so hastily. It was my fault. I annoyed Miss Craven, insulted her. Hang it all, don't go and spoil everything like this.
This is most infernally perplexing. I can't believe that you insulted Julia Charteris. I've no doubt you annoyed her. You'd annoy anybody. Upon my soul you would, but insult? And now what do you mean by that?
Miss Craven, delicacy and sincerity, I ask you to be frank with me. What are the relations between you and Charteris?
Ask him.
Certainly. I'll confess. I'm in love with Miss Craven. Always have been. And I've persecuted her with my addresses ever since I knew her. It's been no use. She utterly despises me. A moment ago, the spectacle of a rival's happiness stung me to make a nasty, sneering speech, and she just shook me a little, as you saw.
I shall never forget that you helped me win her, Charteris.
For heaven's sake, don't mention it.
Well, this is a very different story to the one you told Cuthbertson and myself this morning. Yeah, you'll excuse me by saying that it sounds much more like the truth. Come, you were humbugging us, weren't you?
Ask Julia.
It's quite true. He's been in love with me. He has persecuted me, and I utterly despise him.
You don't rub it in, Julia. It's not kind. No man is quite himself when he's crossed in love. Now, listen to me, Charteris. When I was a young fellow, Cuthbertson and I fell in love with the same woman. She preferred Cuthbertson. I was taken aback, I won't deny it. But I knew my duty, and I did it. I gave her up and wished Cuthbertson joy. He told me this morning when we met after many years that he has respected and liked me ever since for it. And I believe him and feel the better for it. Now, Charteris, Paramore and you stand today where Cuthbertson and I stood on a certain July evening 35 years ago. How are you going to take it?
How is he going to take it indeed? Really, Papa, this is too much. Mrs. Cuthbertson wouldn't have you. It may have been very noble of you to make a virtue of giving her up, just as you made a virtue of being a teetotaler and Percy cut off your wine. But he shan't be virtuous over me. I refused him. And if he doesn't like it, he can go and...
I can lump it. Precisely. Craven, you can depend on me. I'll lump it.
Julia, you don't treat me respectfully. I mean, I don't wish to complain, but that was not a becoming speech.
Is there anyone in the world who has any feeling for me, who does not think me utterly vile?
My pet, I
What I stand to be bargained for by two men, pass from one to the other like a slave on the market, and not say a word in my own defence?
But my love,
You leave me.
You've wounded her cruelly, Colonel Craven, cruelly.
But I didn't mean to. I said nothing. Charteris, was I harsh?
You forget the revolt of daughters, Craven, and you certainly wouldn't have gone on like that to any grown-up woman who was not your daughter.
Well, do you mean to say that I'm expected to treat my daughter the same as I would any other girl?
I should say certainly, Colonel Craven.
Well, dash me if I will. There.
If you take that tone, I have nothing more to say.
Daddy,
Oh, yes, my love.
don't mind them. You didn't mean it, Daddy, did you?
Oh, no, my precious. Come, don't cry.
How beautiful she is.
Oh, Lord help you, Paramore.
Crying again. Well, you are a womanly one.
Now, don't worry your sister, Sylvia. You know she can't bear it.
I speak for her good, Dad. All the world can't be expected to know that she's the family baby.
You will get your ears boxed presently, silly.
No, my dear children, really now. Come, Julia. Put up your handkerchief before Mrs. Tranfield sees you. She's coming along with you.
That woman again?
Another row. Go it, Julia.
Hold your tongue, Sylvia. Now look here, Julia.
Hello, the revolt of the fathers.
Silence, Charteris. The test of a man or woman's breeding is how they behave in a quarrel. Anyone can behave well where things are going smoothly. Now, you said today at that iniquitous club that you were not a womanly woman. Well, very well, I don't mind. But if you are not going to behave like a lady when Mrs. Transfield comes into this room, you've got to behave like a gentleman. So fond as I am of you, I'll cut you dead exactly as I would if you were my son.
Colonel Craven.
Don't be a fool, Paramore.
I'm sure, Daddy, that...
Stop sniveling. I am not speaking as your daddy now. I'm speaking as your commanding officer.
Good old Victoria Cross.
Ah, Joe, there you are. Now, Paramore, tell them the news.
Mrs. Tranfield, Cuthbertson, allow me to introduce to you my future wife.
My heartiest congratulations. Miss Craven, you will accept Grace's congratulations as well as mine, I hope.
If you will, Joe. Now, Julia.
Now, Grace.
So you have shown him that you can do without him. Now I take back everything I said. Will you shake hands with me? They think this is a happy ending, Julia. These men, our lords and masters.
Has she really chucked you? I expect you chucked her.
And now, Paramore, mind you don't stand any chaff from Charteris about this. He's in the same predicament himself. He's engaged to Grace.
Again?
Don't be alarmed, it's all off.
What? You've chucked Grace too? What a shame.
Oh, she won't have me, old chap. That is, unless Miss Tranfield has changed her mind again.
No. We shall remain very good friends, I hope, but nothing would induce me to marry you.
Poor old Leonard.
Yes, this is the doom of the Philanderer. I shall have to go on philandering now all my life. No domesticity, no fireside, no little ones, nothing at all in Cuthbertson's line. Nobody will marry me. Unless, Sylvia, you, eh?
Not if I know it, Charteris.
You see?
Now, you really shouldn't make a jest of these things. Upon my life and soul, you shouldn't, Charteris.
The only use he can find for sacred things is to make a jest of them. That's the new order. Thank heaven we belong to the old order, Dan.
Cuthbertson, don't be symbolic.
Symbolic? That is an accusation of Ibsenism. What do you mean?
Symbolic of the old order. Don't persuade yourself that you represent the old order. There never was an old order.
I flatly contradict you and stand up for Joe. I no more have behaved as you do than when I was a young man than I'd have cheated at cards. I belong to the old order.
You're getting old, Craven, and you want to make a merit of it, as usual.
Oh, come now, Charteris, you're not offended, I hope. Well, perhaps I shouldn't have said that about cheating at cards. I withdraw it.
No offense, my dear Craven, none in the world. I didn't mean to show any temper. But only just consider the spectacle of a rival's happiness.
Charteris, now you've got to behave like a man. Your duty's plain before you. Am I right, Joe?
You are, Dan.
Go straight upstairs and congratulate Julia, and do it like a gentleman, smiling.
Colonel, I will. Not a muscle shall betray the conflict within.
Julia, Charteris has not congratulated you yet. He's coming to do it.
Take care. She's going to hit you. I know her.
I'll chance it. Julia?
You were right. I am a worthless woman.
Oh, why?
Because I'm not brave enough to kill you.
No. Never make a hero of a Philanderer.
And curtain. Bravo, everybody.
was
Thank you
fun.
so much.
Thank you.
Lovely reading.
Thank you. Great job, guys.
Cool.
Yay.
Right.
That was fun.
That's a fun one.
That
Yep.
was a lot of fun.
We're still
Yeah,
recording.
great job, everyone.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Thank you,
differences
everyone.
between David's script and ours.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
it was amazing how much difference there was. I've
Does,
never
does
encountered
yours have a 3-act
so
script?
much before. Yeah, it's a 3-act script. Yeah.
Ours is 4.
Oh, really?
That's why there was
Yeah.
a big pause and poor
There was
Angus
a-
had to jump
There was an
in.
original 4th. That's interesting. They've got the 4th act.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
very-
2 and 3 were
Okay.
joined together. That's why I was pausing, because I was expecting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he cut the 4th act. So you
Yeah.
obviously have the earlier version of the script.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I am going to have to take a look at that because I've never seen
Yeah.
the 4th act.
And there was another line where you said something totally different.
Yeah. And we were like,
And- And I'm
You
scanning
guys
up and
had already
down.
introduced
Who the hell
yourselves
is
to
it?
each other, and then I made the introduction, but I didn't know what else to do because it was in my script, and I thought,
right.
I don't
You
do what
can't
I'm
do anything you can't
I
say.
do what I'm.
So
So,
I looked for
said it.
something I could say that might follow it reasonably. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Made us pay attention.
Oh, yeah. Keep us on the ball.
yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to do something very different in December, so I'll be in touch with people about that soon.
Okie dokie.
Yeah.
Thank